every deer hunter in the woods probably knows what this is. This is a white oak tree. It's not a big one, it's a young one. And the white oaks are pretty easy to tell. Some of them got real flaky bark. The older they get, it seems like the big ones, they have real paper-like bark. And they have these white patches on them like there. And if you used to cut into this, the core would be whiter. And like a red oak will have a redder core. A white oak has a whiter core. But this is a very medicinal and very useful tree. As far as, one, it brings game. Turkeys like the nuts. So does white-tailed deer. Love them. They will abandon everything to come get, white oak nuts. But it also has medicinal purposes. In between the inner layer and the bark layer, there's a thin layer that has tannin in it, and they used to use that to cure diarrhea or stomach problems. Back in the old days, they'd take some of that tannin, not a lot of it, and you'd eat it, and it'd cure your stomach if you drank some bad water or something. At least help relieve the symptoms. And also the nuts can be used to make a bread. The Native Americans used to grind it up, soak it, get all the tannin out of it, and then you could take it, grind it up, and make bread. And tannin is also used in tanning. Some of the best leather that you can make comes from the bark of this tree. The white oak, to an outdoorsman, is just the best all-around tree. They're great for climbers. As you can see, I got climbing notches in this one. They climb really good and secure. The bark can use for tanning. Inside, it's got medicinal properties. It's a good burning wood. I like the way it smells when it burns. And just an all-around, one of God's best creations in my book. Because around October and November, when they start drawing them deer into them, that's where I like to hunt. So, the white oak tree. Best tree there is as far as I'm concerned. This right here is another batch of wild edibles. Just looks like grass, but it's got these little bulbs on the end here. Now if I smell it, it has a real strong garlic smell to it. Everybody knows that's wild garlic, Let's see if I can get some of it out of here. And on the end of it, it's got little onion bulbs. There they are. And that's wild garlic, is what I call it. Wild onions. It's starting to bloom out here. But this is a whole area plumb full of it. It's got a real strong garlicky smell if you break it. You can really smell it then. And that's what you really got to pay attention to. Is there's some of this stuff out there that looks like this, but if it ain't got that garlic smell, don't eat it. These little bulbs, you can clean these up. And this stuff gets pretty high. And the bulbs on it, they can get up to a dime size, if not bigger. And I tell you what, take some of this, clean it up real good, chop it up with some eggs in the morning, and it's just like having garlic in them. It's a good wild edible right there. This is all stuff that you can find if you need. There's something else that grows in abundance around here, and that's dandelions. Have you ever heard of dandelion salad? That's what's got in it, dandelions. The leaves here are edible. It's kind of a spiky looking leaf. Of course, you can tell them by this long stem with this little lion on top of it, this little mane that my kids love to blow into the breeze. But it also has these yellow flowers. And this stuff right here, you can eat it. And they also say that dandelion milk that you get in this stem, you break it open and rub it on a sore, it can kill some germs. So it can be a disinfectant if you need it. It probably won't kill all germs, but the pH in it will allow it to kill some germs. So once again, edible and medicinal. I mean, you can't beat that, and they grow everywhere. Everywhere. Out here in the woods. They're really common in your yard after you mow. They're the first thing that pops up. So springtime, you can really gather some edibles in the woods and you know, some medicinal plants if you need to. Here's another batch of May apples. After that flower blooms, that's when they'll start growing the fruit. But when you see this, that's also a good indication that morels are popping up. You know, your good edible mushrooms are starting to come up. So not only is this, you know, pretty, it's a good sign that you need to be out looking for them morels. Now when you're out mushroom hunting, I've heard look here, look there, you know, and I've looked and looked and looked out in the woods, spent hours out in the woods looking, and never seemed to find any, them morels, you know. But I did find some this year in my front yard. Here's a picture of them in my hand, of course. Of course, I didn't even think about filming it, or you know, or filming what they look like, because I just swooped them up, got them in the house, cooked them, and ate them. Morel mushrooms are pretty easy to identify. As you can see from the picture, they got a brain-like growth on top of them. They're usually tan in color, or that creamy color, or they get a little darker. There's the white and the black morel. But I found these on the east side of a ash tree, which the east side seems to, I mean, hold true to what a lot of stuff I've heard. But you know, they just sprang up in my yard, 3 of them. You know, that ain't very many, but I tell you what, it was good eating for what little it was. But mushroom hunting, you really want to have a good guide, because there are false morels out there. And what sticks in my mind of the false morels is their stem isn't hollow, and neither is the brain on top. It's usually got some kind of fill in it. They're a heavier mushroom. So if you find a mushroom that looks like a morel, but maybe a different color, and the stem isn't hollow, don't eat it. If you don't know, don't eat it. Stay away from it. These were morels. I opened them up. They were hollow inside. They had the morel look. I knew they were morels. I was positive, so I ate them. But when you're mushroom hunting, you got to be positive. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Have good, clear pictures, and you know, poke somebody's brain that does it. You know, this is knowledge that you need to know, because there are mushrooms out there. They call them death caps, and they're called destroying angels. Those are named that for a reason. They will kill you, so be careful. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little tour of my backyard. These are just some edible plants and useful plants that I think it's just good to know. Back before there was the World Wide Web, this kind of stuff was passed on from generation to generation by mouth, you know, and it's very important, because you know, you might need to know this sometime. Even nowadays, if you're out and you get lost, and of course it's hard to get lost nowadays with as much housing and roads as there is, and it gets worse every year. But it's just stuff that I think people should know, and don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. I'm not always right, and when you're wrong, it can cost you a lot out here in the woods. Now, especially if you're dealing with mushrooms. So just be careful. Don't take my word for it. Do some looking up for yourself, and you'll be safe, and you can have a really good time out hunting mushrooms or looking for wild edibles. Hope you enjoyed this video. I thank you for watching. You can always come check us out on Facebook. You know, like our page at Wild for the Outdoors, and you can always email us. And we enjoy hearing from you. And I thank you for watching. And remember, it's your God-given duty to manage this land. And the only way to do that is through hunting, fishing, and trapping. God bless.